Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on just some of the DC Universe reboot news slash reports type of stuff. So we are getting, well, closer and closer, that's a simple way to put it, to the start of the new DC Universe or DCU reboot, whichever way you want to put it, under, of course, the creative control of James Gunn, alongside Peter Safran, but he's more the business production side. Or producer side, and James Gunn's more like, what's the story going to be? That's what he's doing. With the big moment for this universe really being when Superman hits theaters in the middle of next year, which, once again, it feels like it's a bit away, but, snap your fingers and it's going to be here. And of course, as you'd expect, just because it happens with most big movies, especially big movies where people aren't necessarily sure what's going to happen, there is constant speculation on how that film of Superman will be received when it comes to a couple or a few things, might I say, such as the critical side, in regards to the actual critics that give it a Rotten Tomato score and stuff, the fan side, how do the fans appreciate it, and then probably the most important in regards to like the prosperity of not just the movie, because of course within itself it's important, but this new universe, because this is the first like big proper kickoff point for this new universe, and that's the financial side. That's the most important thing when it comes down to it. Unfortunately for some people, but that's just the thing. But if you're honest, that is to worry about when the time actually arrives for all those different things. The critical side, the fan side, and the financial side. No point really putting too much thought into it at this point. At least for us, the viewers. That can be for like the suits and ties at Warner Brothers and stuff to worry about for now up until that point. But over the past few days, we did get a few pieces of new DCU information and some reports from a few outlets and sources, these ranging from the film side of things with things like Superman, as well as the TV side with a couple of shows from this upcoming DC reboot or upcoming new DC universe. But of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts and everything we go over in this video. Always curious to hear what you guys are thinking. And of course, when I drop a like on the video, it takes 2 seconds. So the first thing is like, I guess it's a minor thing because we pretty much knew it was roughly going to be around this point, but we did get an official release date for Creature Commandos, which is the, I guess, like official start of this new DC universe, though James Gunn is saying like, hey, this is technically it, but the real start is Superman. So I think this is like, as I said before, it's almost like a prologue of sorts. Like I think it's going to set up maybe some tiny little things. But the main thing I think really to take from Creature Commandos heading into something like Superman or even Peacemaker Season 2 is that Rick Flag Sr. is going to be in Creature Commandos. But, we don't know what else is going to be set up throughout the show. Maybe Waller is, because Amanda Waller's in this show as well. So that's a wait and see, of course. But yeah, we did get the official release date. This is December 5th. Of course, this is going to be on HBO Max. It's, or Max, might I say. Max, the home of HBO, not HBO Max anymore. Silly name change still. Of course, we had some other shows like Lanterns and The Penguin, and it looks like some other of the future DCU shows are going to be going to HBO proper. But this show, as well as Peacemaker Season 2, look like they're just, of course, just going to be on Max now. Though Peacemaker still has a year until it's probably going to come out roughly. I think I actually saw James Gunn say something about that being out by the end of 2025 without specifying a specific month. But I think that's going to stay on HBO Max or Max. I don't think that's going to move to HBO proper like some of those other shows. But in regards to Creature Commandos, quickly, my expectations is I'm just expecting like I don't want to say okay as in like, trying to put it down, but just a decent watch, but nothing major, if that makes sense. Because if it was major, Gunn would be promoting the hell out of it, saying like, this is it, this is where we start. So you just got to take it for what it is, I think. But Gunn has essentially described the show as a mix between the Suicide Squad and Guardians of the Galaxy, which makes more than a bit of sense because he wrote the show and he wrote and directed both of those movies. So that makes a lot of sense. I have seen people wondering or posing the question, does Gunn struggle writing singular focused stories? Because he's done Guardians, group movie. The Suicide Squad, group movie. Peacemaker, though it's about a singular character, it's really a group show with Peacemaker and that crew around there. And now we have Superman coming up, which is going to be about Superman, but has all those other heroes like Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, Metamorpho, and stuff like that within there. And with like Superman, that's a wait and see. We don't know how much of the movie those characters are in. They might be in like a 10th of the movie, and the rest is a full-on solo Superman movie. That's for us to wait and see. We don't know. We're silly to jump to conclusions at this point. Of course, Gunn seems to prefer that, but that's because he's a character writer. He's not really a massive story guy. He's a character guy. Like his stuff is really character focused. So you got to surround those stories or those movies or those projects, whether they're film or TV, with characters so that can happen. But speaking of Superman, the first thing we have to go over is actually something from Daniel RPK. The first thing is specifically about Superman, and the next thing that was coming out is about a couple of other things. So the first thing that was said by him is this: I've also heard that the new Superman movie is fantastic and they're going all out. It's a complete shift to hardcore sci-fi and fantasy, the exact opposite of Man of Steel. It's set in a world very different from ours and far removed from the DCEU. Heroes have been around for ages, and we'll see how it affected the world's history and has shaped the DCU. So this is sort of what I was expecting, especially if you did see some of the set photos, just how people were dressed. Like that's just a simple way to feel a universe, is how people were dressed. But then they were using like cell phones or mobile phones. Americans call them cell phones, but yeah, they were using mobile phones or cell phones and like smartphones. I'm pretty sure they were actually using. So it's like retro futuristic sort of, but it's gonna be like, we know that like Fantastic Four, the Marvel movie, is gonna be like retro futuristic, but Superman's going for like a different type of it. That's specifically, I think, pointing to a time period where retro futuristic a lot of the times points to like the 50s and 60s and then adds a futuristic element on there. I think with the Superman and DC world, or at least Metropolis specifically, it's going to be a bit different. The thing I'm most intrigued by when it says this is just that heroes have been around for ages, but how it affects the world's history. Because one thing I did see, I don't know if it was from Daniel RPK or something else, but it might have been James Gunn himself. I can't remember. I saw it throughout the week and I've lost the source for it all, but it was something about like how metahumans served in World War II. So that's an interesting aspect, is like if they were used in these different periods and openly were there, potentially using their powers, and then also what heroes were public and existed in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, even up to the 90s and stuff like that. Did we have the JSA back in the 40s and 50s? Is that where they were based? Did we have Alan Scott and Jay Garrick and, you know, Wildcat and stuff back in those days? Or was it different? Was it a different type? Are they going to use like really niche superheroes that were back then? That's the thing I'm very, very curious about. And also just how it changes some of the world's history. But then again, this is going to be detached from reality and be in its own world. So you might not have, you know, JFK be a president, for example. It could be all fictional presidents, and Abraham Lincoln maybe existed, but not a lot else after that, because there might have been some shift in history because of something DC related that's in that universe. So that's the thing I'm very, very intrigued by. But the next thing here is something about lanterns, and just says that the studio wants Josh Brolin because Hal Jordan is an older, gruff, no-nonsense mentor to Jon Stewart, and also that filming begins next year. Now, the filming begins next year, not a surprise. It was pretty much, like, everything lines up with that. Like, it was to the point where if it actually started filming by the end of this year, it wouldn't be shocking, just because how the dominoes are lining up and falling, you know, as wanted, not by accident. They're actually intentionally pushing the dominoes over to get things going. I'm still not a fan of the Josh Brolin thing. I'm actually, like, I don't love or really overly like the idea of an older Hal Jordan, but if that's what they want to do, because it fits in with what they want to do with this DCU, then I'm fine with it, as long as it serves the story and the story benefits from it. Though you are like taking away from one of the characters, it benefits the universe as a whole. If that's the case, then fair enough, go with that. It's just not the best choice. Now, obviously, some of the other options there, of course, as I said, were Josh Brolin, but then there was Matthew McConaughey, Ewan McGregor, Chris Pine, and Timothy Olyphant were the other ones that were mentioned. I think Chris Pine was then revealed to actually be the next on the shortlist. So I guess in order of what Warner Brothers wants, at least from what we know, it's Josh Brolin, then Chris Pine. Chris Pine, much better choice. I think every other of those four choices is a better option than Josh Brolin, just being completely honest. My pick, I'd be pretty happy with Chris Pine, but I just have this feeling that Timothy Olyphant will be a really, really good really, really good choice for it. And also he's like the least known out of them. So I think that's why it works. But then again, I think those other four bring, especially Ewan McGregor and probably Matthew McConaughey and maybe Chris Pine, bring a like more attention to the show. So I'm very intrigued to see what they would do there. But hopefully we hear this casting news and like what they decide sooner rather than later. Just so speculation just sort of dies down, rather something confirmed, rather than something like this just hanging in the nether for ages. But then again, they got to get everything confirmed and sign contracts and stuff before they announce stuff. So I can understand why they would take their time. And the final thing with Lanterns is apparently DC met with Stephen Williams, who's been a director on Watchmen, Lost, which are two David Lindelof show, Damon Lindelof, not David Lindelof, Damon Lindelof show, and of course he's a producer on this Lantern show. He's also done stuff for Westworld, which is of course an HBO show, and then some stuff for Walking Dead as well, and some other shows. Now he's in talks to potentially direct the pilot for Lanterns, but as I say, filming would still be like 3 or 4 months away, so they probably would be deciding that over the next month or so. I personally thought they might have got one of the people, one of the producers to direct the pilot, like either Damon Lindelof or even the guy from Ozark, who's the main showrunner. I thought they might have got them to direct it, but maybe they want like a specific style, so they go for someone else. And the final thing to talk about is just something with the DCU, and it's attached to the Daniel RPK thing. It says the DCU will feature various projects set across different timelines, not just present day, so more in line with the approach of Star Wars than Marvel. So obviously Marvel's like very present day. There's only some things that exist in the past, like Captain Marvel. And was there something else that was in the past? I feel like there was, and I'm just having a brain fart and I can't remember. Was it something recent? I can't remember. But Captain Marvel's a good example. It was set in the 90s and wasn't set in present day. But the DCU will be very much like how you have stuff that's like 50 years later than the others, and you can go back and do some other stuff and various things like that. Now, I think the use of the term timelines is the incorrect term, because that makes you think, oh, Flashpoint timeline, this timeline, that timeline. I think it's more time periods, because different timelines, I guess in the sense of DC, equals multiverse. And at least that's what I'm gathering. It's not timelines, it's time periods. But that lines up with like what they're saying, where like the heroes have existed for ages and they've been in different periods of time. And there's like rumors that we're going to get a Sergeant Rock movie, which would have to be in like World War II, unless they want to push it to Vietnam, if they really want to push it there. But you'd assume it'd be World War II, and we get an emphasis on metahumans existing back then, because Sergeant Rock isn't a metahuman, but there could be metahumans around him. And even then, Creature Commandos with a character of like G.I. Robot could tease there being metahumans back in those times as well, and stuff like that. So I'm just interested to see how it lays out. And also we know that, like, it seems like, well, I'm going to say we know, but it seems from what James is going to say that there's only like an 8 to 10 year limit on this universe. So I'm very interested to see like what he focuses on, how it builds together, how it strings together, and what's the end goal, because it's not like Marvel where they're going to keep going after it, like where their goal was get to Endgame with Thanos. What's James Gunn's one, and where does it end? Is his final thing Crisis? Is his final thing Zero Crisis? Is it like what's his end thing? So I'm very, very intrigued to see how all of this stitches together with stuff in different time periods, but also with like some niche characters as well. Very, very interested. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts and everything we went over this video. Always curious to read what you guys are thinking. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.